Hello goblins, it's Chris, Eldritch Pipes. It's an episode of this week's Pipes. I've got two to show you and we'll get to those in a little bit. One is available. But before I get there, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about games. I've been thinking a lot about games recently. I consider myself a board gamer primarily. I have done role-playing games in the past. My favourite is Call of Cthulhu. Probably no surprise to anybody. That's my heater squeaking away. But it's board games that have really captured my imagination probably over the last 10 or 20 years. And it's been Fantasy Flight games that have produced most of my favourites. The second edition of Arkham Horror is an absolutely amazing behemoth of a game, especially with all the expansions on it. It's huge, unwieldy game, but I love it. Then the more streamlined Eldritch Horror. What came after that? Elder Signs was also another more pocket-sized Eldritch game, which was also a lot of fun. A bit more dice rolling. I think it's sometimes called like Horror Yahtzee or something like that. But since Christmas, we bought the boy. Well, actually, the wife bought the boy a starter set for Magic the Gathering. It's a card game that I've previously steered clear of because you see Magic the Gathering players walking around with folders of cards and thought, that's a rabbit hole I don't want to fall down. You know, I'm already obsessed with various things. I don't need another thing to obsess about. But he started looking into it, and then we started playing. Well, we discovered they have this commander format that allows for more than two players, up to 4 players. I think probably the thing that's fortunately held me back from these card games is that they're primarily a 2-player game, and I normally have a game group that's about 3 or 4 players. So you need a game that can service at least those many. But the commander format of Magic the Gathering allows for up to 4 players. In fact, it can comfortably take 5 players, really. And Magic. It's a good game, but I can see it's not going to do me any good. But there you go. Magic the Gathering is now the new semi-obsession. Oh boy. Right. 2 pipes. One reasonably normalish and one reasonably specialish. The one that's available, I haven't made this shape in a little while actually. So I'm glad I took a crack at this again. It is, let's have a look. It's an author. I do love the author shape. It's related to my other favourite shape, which is the prince. And I kind of do a swoopy version of it. I like to really make the S shape kind of sing a bit, if I can. This was a curious block. On this side, you can see, which side is facing the camera? Right, on this side, you can mostly see ring grain that's come out. Whereas on the other side, you can see it's the straight grain that's come out most, which is kind of interesting. This is orientated, the grain's orientated like a volcano, in that you can imagine the centre of the block being sort of up here and the plateau being underneath. So it's fanning out that way. So you have the grain sort of fanning out along the grain, but it's not straight cut, although there is some straight grain on the front. I think the grain went a little to one side over this side, so instead of getting the straight grain as much, for some reason the ring grain came up. But then the straight grain is on the back of the bowl as well. You can see some of the ring grain coming across on the shank. On that side too. And then you just got like, it's like pebble dash of bird's eye on the bottom of the bowl. And just a little on the thin rim as well. It feels, it's quite a substantial bowl. And it's a slightly larger diameter chamber on this guy. I normally do, well, I think of it actually in American money, it's 3/4 of an inch, which is about 19 millimeters. And this is 20-ish, 21. You might think that that doesn't make 19 and 20 to 21, doesn't make that much difference. But actually, it really kind of does. So it feels like a really quite substantial chamber in this guy as well. And I paired this with orange Cumberland. And this piece of Cumberland is completely wild. It's just like a paint splatter. It's gone, there's no discernible streaks. It's just squiggles and swirls. It's, yeah, look at that. It's just really random, which I very much like. And that's like a chocolate stain on there. So it's a chocolate sandblast. Just slightly knocked back as well. So you actually do get, I wouldn't call it a contrast, but you can see, this light doesn't pick it up very well, but you can see the grain variation. A little. Not loads, it's not like a contrast blast or anything like that. So there you are. My first author for this year, and in fact, in quite a few months. I can't actually remember the last author I made. A goodly while ago. The other pipe that I finished this week, I was working on another pipe, but I didn't finish it. So that'll make it into this week's pipes. I won't give you a preview. It's not close enough for a preview, but this one is nice and special. I don't do many of these. It is an alchemist strawberry. I think the last one I did was a natural smooth, which is one variation, which is lovely, but then there's also this like high contrast variation as well with the orange to the black, which is a nice pairing. But also I don't rusticate hardly ever. It's mainly sandblasts or smooths if I can get them. Hardly ever rusticate. So this is a rare example of some rustication. I think I was thinking something along the lines of charcoal strawberry or something like that. That's the hidden separation there. There you can see the resin bonded onto the bowl. it's got a death grip on the briar. People ask me, like, will it ever separate the briar from the resin? And in unfortunate instances where I've maybe dropped one of these before, I think I have done it once. The briar has broken before the bond between the resin and the briar breaks. They're not coming apart. Always fun to do. If you're ever wondering which finish takes the longest, a smooth, a sandblast, or a rustication, funnily enough, I think maybe the rustication takes the longest because, especially the way that I do it with very fine. Some people use it with like a bunch of nails, and that's not how I do it. It's kind of, I'm going over the surface with quite a fine tool, in fact, to get the effect that I want. This kind of like crater effect, and it takes a long time. So it's probably why I do them the least, these rustications, but it's fun to do if you've got patience. And to be a pipe maker, you have to have some patience. This one's not available. This is gone. We'll be going off to its owner very shortly. All right, there you go. That was this week's pipes. If you're interested in the author, you can email me. I'll put my email below, or contact me on Instagram or Facebook if you like to do things that way, and we can have a chat. All right. Until next week, I'll be back. I might even be doing tobacco reviews very soon. That's the plan, to replace the Listen with Eldritch series for a little bit. I'll either be back with a tobacco review or with this week's pipes. But till then, take it very easy, your loyal pipe maker.